Since it is the 4th of July and the Ypsilanti commercial was a weekly, we will recap that day via the July 11th edition, 1874, the last full year of Allie McCullough's life. Brother Johnstone of the Michigan Farmer says, let's enlarge this, probably the greatest gathering ever seen that any city in the state outside of Detroit was the celebration of the 4th held at Ypsilanti. The occasion was the 50th anniversary or semi-centennial of the first celebration of the adoption of the Declaration of Independence held in Washtenaw County. Nearly the whole population of the county was present and joined in it. The Honorable Schuyler Colfax delivered the oration, and the Honorable L.D. Norris, a son of Mark Norris, one of the first settlers in Ypsilanti, made an historical address, a proper use of AN before an H, in which he called the memories of many who are still living to vivid pictures of the early history of the county and of the growth of the district and of the state. Amongst those present was Mr. Alpha Washtenaw Bryan, the first white child born in the settlement, and his mother was also present, Mrs. John Bryan, a lady now 80 years of age. Mr. John Bryan, the father, built the pillars of the Capitol building in Detroit that is now known as the Capitol School, and he was the first man who had ever driven a team from Detroit to Ypsilanti. We were somewhat acquainted with him when he was alive and have heard him relate some of his experiences. He afterwards moved to St. Joseph County and settled near Constantine, where a number of his family still reside. As a celebration got up by the pioneers of a county, this was one that must have given to many hearts a pleasure of the most exquisite nature, and as the orator, whom they had known from childhood, recalled events and story and anecdote, an old familiar name, how memory must have brought before them the wonderful history of the past 50 years. You may also recall that suffrage and prohibition were leading causes of this day, led by women, and this short article about the Methodist Church speaks to suffrage. I think it actually speaks to both. We do not wonder that the Methodist, I'm not sure what ME, Methodist Episcopalian, I'm not sure. I do believe that the McCulloughs went there, at least Allie mentioned going to the church for some event. That for the last decade has furnished largely the moral power and progressive movements for the welfare of the human race is so unanimously ministers and people in favor of the crowning reform of this generation, women's suffrage. Unanimity, is as indicated at the state convention at Jackson is to be expected of a church whose bishops, Simpson, Haven, and Bowman are ardent advocates of women's suffrage, or women's suffrage, I think it is. I can't tell which it is. The churches, unfortunately, have been the last to wheel their great army of women and men into line on the side of reformatory movements. Their conservatism is in regard to the sin and crime of slavery drove Garrison and large numbers of men and women from their membership. Mistakenly, we think, for they ought to have remained and leavened and reformed the churches. The conservatism in the church, born of the devil, must be rooted out. All hail to the ME Church of Michigan for taking the lead. God will shower down his blessings in rich measure upon it. I guess that was pro-Methodist Church. Since the Allie McCullough diary is basically a prelude to death, we might as well include this little advertisement from the Detroit Post. The $65 coffin cost the manufacturer only $7, according to the advertisement of a firm of undertakers at Plymouth, Indiana. Coming from the source it does, the statement should be true. They give the particulars as follows. Black walnut lumber, $1. Sure what this says. Something price for making $1. Upholstering and again I can't read that. With silver plated handles, etc. $5. These fellow citizens you can see for yourselves. Their fellow citizens you can see for yourself. Had you not better part I can't read this. Had you not better put off dying until the prices of coffin are reduced, or else go for cremation. A splendid porcelain, I assume it says vase, for your ashes can be bought far below the price of glittering, decaying coffins by the Detroit Post. There was a comet in the area in July of 1874. The comet is getting over space at the rate of 4 million miles a day and will keep up that speed until the 22nd of this month, when it will drag itself and tail into the sight of our, I don't know what that says, of the southern hemisphere. It is astonishing how many people, and especially young people, get their heads together over the comet. There's also this little mention of pickpockets on the 4th after the commercial on the 4th posted that it encouraged citizens to behave and make the city proud, more or less, it said. But pickpockets were around on the 4th. A number parted mysteriously with their money, and among others, we are sorry to record, our old friend Milton Pettibone, who had, looks like $85 taken while he was eating his dinner. The 4th of July, 1874, also from page 2 of the Ypsilanti commercial. This day will long be a memorable one in the annals of our city. Of the vast multitude, estimated from 25,000 to 30,000, who thronged our streets, few will ever live to witness another such a profoundly interesting celebration. In 1924, here and there, now and then only, can a representative be found who will be able to detail any of the events of our celebration in 1874. Some families who have the good sense to save their local paper and annually have had copies bound with will refer to files of the commercial of June 27th, July 4th, and especially July 11th with intense interest. It may be that another generation of assembled thousands on the then beautiful fairgrounds, another orator, perchance a man or woman yet unborn, will on that centennial day unearth from its musty files and read extracts from the historical oration, reveal the name of Schuyler Colfax, ex-president of the United States, didn't happen, as the chief orator, and it may be read this very editorial. A few gray-haired old men and women now laughing, gleeful boys and girls, will remember the picture. They will remember how the platform, being crowded and especially weighed down by two burly forms, the president of the day, S.M. Cutchin, and the governor of the state, John J. Bagley, sunk a few inches, but as Caesar and all his fortunes were aboard, it stopped at the right place. They will not forget that an old gentleman, Reverend John D. Pierce, with gray beard and white flowing locks, made the opening prayer. They will remember that it was a very hot day. The wind blew a stout breeze, and L.D. Norris, whose historical oration is given in full in our supplement, could not be heard. And leaving the platform, took a position on the grandstand among the pioneers. That when he mentioned the name of the firstborn child of the county, Alpha Washtenaw Bryan, who, being on the platform, the president of the day requested, now 50 years old, to stand up, that 3 cheers were given him. And then his mother, upwards of 80 years old, also was presented, showing a woman well preserved and of comely form, and 3 cheers were also given her. Little did she imagine 50 years ago that her newborn son and herself would ever witness such a glorious occasion. They will remember how Mr. Colfax looked, what a noble speech he made, how desirous they were of seeing it in print. What's that say? But that Mr. C claimed the preemptive right, and the editor was nonplussed for once. They will remember the grand music of the occasion by Professor F.H. Peace's normal class, and Crosset's Constantine band, the grand procession, the booming guns, the numberless flags, the splendid arches, the inspection of the military by the governor and staff, the unexcelled fireworks in the evening, and perchance, as they see a standing piece upon which shall be blazoned 1820, 18, I don't know what that says, 1824, 1874, and 1924, the middle period, they will exclaim was a joyous day for Ypsilanti. Allie, by the way, mentioned both the arches and the fireworks. They will remember how the pioneers years agone in their sepulchres honored the occasion by their presence and constituted an important part of the procession, and what a superb dinner they had. Also, the 1924 is obviously 100 years ago today, so there we go. And the article continues. Some little girl now will tell how her mother, a member of the Library Association, attended the tables and helped feed the great multitude. They will remember how our city received as honored guests the municipal authorities of the then only other city in the county, Ann Arbor, and also the villages and towns. They will tell of the great conflict going on to abolish the demon intemperance from our city, now an accomplished feat long years ago, and will say that through the moral power of this great noble effort, what quiet and good order reigned on the 4th, 1874. On that grand centennial, our issue of May 23rd, containing the past, present, and future of Ypsilanti, will be referred to by the orator. Its present business and resources, its churches, educational institutions, library associations, societies, military and firemen, contrasted with those of the day. 50 years has made a beautiful city of 5,500 inhabitants. 50 years hence may see from 20,000 to 25,000. The women of that day will remember with surprise the fact that in 1874 their mothers and grandmothers could not vote, a privilege that for over a generation past they have enjoyed to the mutual benefit of both sexes and the moral well-being of communities and the welfare of the nation. The orator will recur to the fact that the very year of our great semi-centennial celebration, the question of impartial suffrage was submitted to the people for decision and chronicle its glorious triumph. Indecipherable, blah, blah, etc., and shameful defeat on its first trial at the ballot box by the men of Michigan. He will refer to the ridiculous, absurd arguments urged against it now by men and women of professed common sense. Amid the universal jest and guffaw of the vast throng are children and grandchildren, grown wiser in the school of historical experience. In the Local Matters section under Extras, among the celebrations of the 4th not mentioned elsewhere are the Scottish Games conducted by Mr. A. McNichol, which took place with great success on the fairgrounds. During the general celebration, also the German picnic held in the Arbiter's Grove, which held over until Monday, disturbing in a measure before unknown the Sabbath's quiet, much to the annoyance of the church-going residents in that part of the city. Our light guard gallantly escorted the military companies as they came and left, and also the honored guest from abroad. One more mention, the cold meat, bread, and mince pies of which the Ladies' Library Association found themselves possessed after feeding the immense crowd on the 4th, have formed the staple articles of diet in many families during the present week. Ellie did mention sitting in a tent and feeding soldiers and other people, so I'm not sure which group she was attending with, but it seems to have been a common thread among the groups of the city at the time. Continuing with the 4th celebration, Ypsilanti wears the crown. This is from page 4 of July 11th, 1874 Ypsilanti commercial. She never fails in what she undertakes, if within the power of human will and energy to accomplish it. This is the common verdict abroad. In every great enterprise, her citizens are well nigh a unit. It has been so in this ever memorable 4th of July celebration. It has been a grand success. In whatever light viewed, there seems to have been a failure nowhere. Then a list of names who spent days and weeks in perfecting the arrangements is due its honor and praise. They were seconded by a number of public spirited ladies. The morning of the 4th opened up gloriously, and before sunrise, the booming gun loaned us through the favor of Lieutenant W.F. Hellick of the regular army by the commanding officer at Fort Wayne and by the kindness of the Michigan Central Railroad, transported free of charge, told the story far over the surrounding county, the harbinger of the day's doings. The early trains on the Hillsdale and Central roads brought their thousands. William F. Parker, superintendent, perfected his arrangements admirably, and 2 trains, one of 3 cars and another of 21, early came headed down. After the express and something and another special train had come in, crowded with human freight, Mr. Wheeler received a telegram that several hundreds were waiting at Ann Arbor for transportation, and an extra was sent up for them. As many as 2,000 came from Detroit. Every avenue leading into our city from the country was thronged with vehicles from 7 a.m. to 11 o'clock. The procession formed, and as announced last week, was an imposing affair. Chief Marshal Frank P. Bogardus, 1st Division Military, 2nd Division, I think Allie's father, or was it brother, was part of the fire department, but I don't see his name mentioned. I saw a photo in the archives of the, I think, University of Michigan via the Ypsilanti Historical Society of one of the William McCulloughs being on the fire board. And also John Starkweather, in whose fine carriage drawn by his spanking pair of bays they rode. The following visitors were also on the stand. Baker, Villa. See, there's just a ton of people. I'm not reading all these names. You can read them as you go along. Probably should be reading them, but we allude elsewhere to the music conducted by Professor F.H. Peace and interspersed with, what's that say? I don't know. By Crossett's band. Also prayer by Reverend J.D. Pierce. We give our readers the able historical address of secular interest. I think I have no clue what it says. Peculiar interest, the citizens of this county by Honorable L.D. Norris in full. Also the address of Schuyler Colfax as reported by the correspondent of the Post and Tribune. We will pause there. I will skip to the pyrotechnic display, the fireworks. Beginning that early twilight was of the highest order. We have seen the fireworks on Boston Common, but never have we seen the skyrockets and standing pieces on this occasion surpassed. Among the striking pieces were Welcome to Ypsilanti, General Washington on horseback, Washtenaw, 1824 to 1874, Good night, the fireworks over. And now comes the tug of war. How are the vast multitude to get out of the fairgrounds? Though there were 2 gateways, carriages, foot passengers struggled in inextricable confusion for the right-of-way. It is marvelous that no one was injured, though a number of damaged carriages were next morning stranded this side the grounds. Some parties who had over 20 miles to go were detained inside over an hour. This has passed into history, this remarkable day in the annals of the city and county. Was marred by no disturbance, no serious accident. It will often be recurred to by our children and children's children, and as 1824 has been thus commemorated by us, so 1874 will be made the theme of oratory and song in 1924. I'm just going to end there because that's all. I got to go to work, even though it's the 4th.